The old car rumbled to a stop. Dust swirled around the tires. Four friends piled out, stretching stiff legs. They stood before the Grand Blackwood Hotel. It was enormous. "Wow," Emily breathed, gazing up at the towering structure. "This place is something else." The hotel loomed over them. Its stone walls were dark with age. Ivy crawled up its sides like long green fingers. The windows, like watchful eyes, seemed to follow their every move. They shouldered their bags. Excitement, tinged with a shiver of apprehension, rippled through the group. They were ready for a weekend of spooky fun. The lobby was dim and hushed. A fire crackled in a grand fireplace. Shadows danced on the walls. The friends checked in. The air felt heavy, as if laden with unseen history. Their footsteps echoed on the wooden floors as they made their way to their rooms. They passed beneath a chandelier that glittered like 1,000 icy eyes. "Did you hear that?" whispered Michael, stopping suddenly. "Hear what?" asked Chloe, her eyes wide. "I thought I heard music," he murmured. "Coming from down the hall?" Later that evening, the friends joined a group in the lobby. The air was thick with anticipation, and the dim lighting added to the mysterious atmosphere. They exchanged excited whispers, their eyes darting around the room, wondering what awaited them. They were waiting for the ghost tour to begin. The Grand Blackwood Hotel was known for its haunted history, and tonight they were about to experience it firsthand. The group huddled closer together, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. A tall, thin man with a long grey beard approached. His presence commanded attention, and the room fell silent as he neared. There was something almost otherworldly about him, as if he had stepped out of another time. He wore a black top hat and a long coat. His attire was reminiscent of the Victorian era, adding to the eerie ambience of the evening. The friends exchanged glances, their curiosity piqued. "Welcome, everyone," he said, his voice low and gravelly. It was a voice that seemed to carry the weight of countless stories and secrets. The group leaned in, eager to hear more. "I am Mr. Silas, your guide to the haunted history of the Grand Blackwood Hotel." His introduction sent a shiver down their spines. The name itself seemed to echo with the whispers of the past. Mr. Silas's eyes twinkled in the dim light. There was a mischievous glint in them, as if he knew secrets that he was about to reveal. The friends couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and excitement. He led them through the hotel, sharing tales of its eerie past. Each story was more chilling than the last, painting a vivid picture of the hotel's haunted history. The friends hung on his every word, their imaginations running wild. Each room seemed to hold secrets. The vintage decor and dim lighting added to the sense of mystery. It was as if the walls themselves were whispering the tales of those who had come before. Each corridor whispered with unseen presences. The friends listened intently, their senses heightened by the eerie atmosphere. Every creak and shadow seemed to come alive with the stories Mr. Silas told. They were captivated by Mr. Silas's stories and the way he told them. His voice, his expressions, and the way he moved through the hotel made the tales come alive. It was an experience they would never forget, a night where the past and present seemed to merge into one. They say she wanders these halls, searching for her lost love. Her presence felt in the cold drafts that sweep through the corridors. The legend has it that she was once a beautiful young woman, deeply in love with a man who promised her the world. But fate had other plans, and their love story ended in tragedy. Mr. Silas whispered. He stood with the group outside a room on the 3rd floor, the very room where the lady in white is said to have spent her final days. The group listened intently, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. He was talking about the Lady in White, a tale that had been passed down through generations. According to the story, she had been waiting for her lover to return, but he never did. Heartbroken, she wandered the halls, her spirit unable to find peace. She was said to be the ghost of a young woman who had died of a broken heart. Her story was one of love and loss, a poignant reminder of the fragility of human emotions. The photograph of her, taken in the prime of her youth, showed a woman with a melancholic expression, as if she knew her fate was sealed. Guests had reported seeing a fleeting glimpse of a white figure, a shadowy presence that disappeared as quickly as it appeared. Some said they felt a cold hand brush against their skin, while others heard soft whispers in the dead of night. One night, Mr. Silas continued, a guest claimed to have spoken with her. The guest described her as a sorrowful figure dressed in a flowing white gown, her eyes filled with an unending sadness. She had asked the guest if they had seen her lover, her voice barely audible. Like the rustling of leaves, the friends held their breath, the tension in the air palpable. They exchanged nervous glances, each wondering if they too might encounter the lady in white during their stay. The air in the hallway felt heavy, as if someone or something was watching them. The shadows seemed to move, and the dim lighting cast eerie shapes on the walls. It was as if the hotel itself was alive, holding its breath along with the guests. "What happened?" Jake finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. The question hung in the air, the group waiting with bated breath for Mr. Silas to continue the tale. The hallway seemed to grow colder, the silence almost deafening as they awaited the next part of the story. Section 5. A Soldier's Sorrow. Mr. Silas led them down a long corridor. The walls were lined with portraits of stern-faced men in military uniforms, their eyes seeming to follow the group as they walked. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and a hint of something metallic, perhaps the lingering essence of past battles. He paused outside a room at the very end. The door was old, its wood darkened with age and wear. A brass nameplate, tarnished and barely legible, read Private Jameson. The door was slightly ajar, and a chill seemed to emanate from it. A faint light seeped through the crack, casting eerie shadows on the floor. It was as if the room itself was breathing, alive with memories and sorrow. "This room," he said, his voice even lower than usual, "belonged to a soldier." His tone was reverent, almost as if he were speaking in a sacred place. The room was dark, with only a single dim light casting long shadows across the floor. He returned from war deeply troubled. The battles he fought were not just on the fields, but within his own mind. The horrors he witnessed haunted him day and night, leaving him a shell of the man he once was. He never left this room again. The outside world became too much for him to bear. The room with its four walls became his sanctuary and his prison. He spent his days staring out the single window, lost in thoughts of what could have been. Some guests had reported hearing the sound of boots pacing back and forth. The rhythmic thud of the steps was both haunting and mesmerizing, as if the soldier was still marching, unable to find peace. Others claimed to have seen the shadow of a man standing in the window. His silhouette was a stark contrast against the dim light, a silent sentinel watching over the grounds, perhaps waiting for a battle that would never come. The friends peered nervously into the darkened room. Their hearts raced, and they could feel the weight of the soldier's presence. It was as if time had stopped, and they were transported back to the days of war and sorrow. They could almost feel the soldier's sadness. It was a palpable force, pressing down on them, making it hard to breathe. The room was filled with an overwhelming sense of loss and longing. It hung in the air like a shroud. The mist seemed to swirl around them, whispering secrets of the past. The friends knew they were standing in a place where history and sorrow were intertwined, forever etched into the very fabric of the room. Section 6. Cold Spots and Goosebumps. As they moved from room to room, the friends felt the temperature change. Some areas were noticeably colder than others. "This is a cold spot," Mr. Silas explained as they stood in a particularly chilly corridor. "It's where the veil between our world and the next is said to be thinnest." They felt goosebumps prickle their skin. They were surrounded by the unseen, the unknown. "Do you ever get used to it?" Emily asked Mr. Silas, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Silas smiled faintly. "You learn to coexist," he said. Section 7. The Phantom Pianist. The tour ended back in the lobby. As they stood by the grand fireplace, they heard it. The faint sound of music drifted down from the floor above. It was soft and melancholic. "The Phantom Pianist," Mr. Silas said, nodding. "He was once the hotel's resident musician, full of life and joy. Now his music is all that remains." The friends listened, mesmerized by the haunting melody. It seemed to echo the sadness and longing that permeated the hotel. The music faded away as quickly as it had begun, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Section 8. Laughter in the dark. Back in their rooms, the friends couldn't stop talking about the tour. They shared their favorite stories and compared their experiences. "That was amazing," exclaimed Chloe, her eyes sparkling. "I know, right?" said Jake. "Did you see how pale Michael got when Mr. Silas talked about the soldier?" Michael laughed, trying to hide his embarrassment. Okay, that was a little creepy," he admitted. They laughed together, their fear giving way to amusement. The shared experience had brought them closer. The Grand Blackwood Hotel, with all its eerie history, had brought them together for a night of unforgettable fun. Section 9. Until next time. The next morning, the friends checked out of the hotel. The sun was shining, casting a warm glow on the imposing building. It seemed less menacing in the daylight. As they drove away, they couldn't help but look back at the Grand Blackwood Hotel. It stood silently, its secrets safely locked away within its walls. They knew they would never forget their night of spooky adventures. They had faced their fears and emerged with a few good stories to tell, and they all agreed they wouldn't hesitate to return for another dose of chilling laughter.